Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. This is Try Something.Vegetarian. I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and this is the broadcast. World War III, UN officials, US planning a tactical assault in Iran, Jerusalem Post article review. So let's hop right to that article. Basically, it's something I forgot in my previous broadcast. World War III prevent bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. Rouhani should halt enrichment until July 7th. So this is the article I will read. And of course the July 7th date. The June 27th date, that is when Iran will exceed the uranium stockpile limit set by Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers. So June 27th comes before July 7th, ahead of a July 7th deadline for Europe to come up with better terms for Iran to stay in the accord. So Trump has ended the nuclear deal, but Iran still has that nuclear deal with other countries. And they will resume higher uranium enrichment if that second deadline passes without any action. IrishExaminer.com reported. So July 7th is a deadline date for Europe to come up with better terms for Iran to stay in the nuclear deal. What is the current status of Iran's nuclear program is the title of this article. And I begin with a short intro. So I've advised Rouhani to halt uranium enrichment at least till the 7th of July. Because Trump and others may pretend that they don't want a world war, but actions speak louder than words, and that may be their goal, to reduce the global population and build a third temple. So he may be working for the Jesuits and Masons that have this goal of imposing a satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government upon the people of planet Earth after reducing global population to 500 million. More about that in my previous broadcasts. So I'm gonna read this article, but first this small short intro.
To prevent a world war over Iran sanctions, 1. Trump is advised not to press ahead with what some would consider illegal sanctions. Iran does not have any nuclear weapon and therefore any sanctions are unjustified. 2. Rouhani is advised not to press ahead with transporting cancer oil to countries Trump has forbidden Iran to transport oil to as part of legal or illegal sanctions and to make agreements with both Trump and Putin. 3. Trump is advised to have an agreement with Russian President Putin before taking any action. 4. Putin is advised to prevent any type of retaliation if required to prevent World War III, and create universal peace instead. UN officials. U.S. planning a tactical assault in Iran. The military action under consideration would be an aerial bombardment of an Iranian facility linked to its nuclear program, the officials further claimed. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, photo credit, Reuters. Is the US going to attack Iran soon? Diplomatic sources at the UN headquarters in New York revealed to Marif that they are assessing the United States' plans to carry out a tactical assault on Iran in response to the tanker attack in the Persian Gulf on Thursday. Read more related articles. Rockets fired at U.S. military base in Iraq, report U. According to the officials, since Friday, the White House has been holding incessant discussions involving senior military commanders, Pentagon representatives and advisors to President Donald Trump. The military action under consideration would be an aerial bombardment of an Iranian facility linked to its nuclear program, the officials further claimed. The bombing will be massive but will be limited to a specific target, said a Western diplomat. The decision to carry out military action against Iran was discussed in the White House before the latest report that Iran might increase the level of uranium enrichment. The officials also noted that the United States plans to reinforce its military presence in the Middle East, and in the coming days will also send additional soldiers to the area. The sources added that President Trump himself was not enthusiastic about a military move against Iran, but lost his patience on the matter and would grant Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who is pushing for action, what he wants. Recommended videos powered by any clip. Trump expected to raise issue of Hong Kong human rights at G20. Play video now playing. Trump expected to raise issue of Hong Kong human rights at G20. Full range of options on the table against Iran. Pompeo. Russia warns U.S. to stop provoking Iran. U.S. says Iran responsible for tanker attacks. Donald Trump receives warning letter signed by over 660 retailers. Healthcare to be the touchstone issue of 2020 elections in U.S. Kim Kardashian West speaks on prison reform at White House. Pompeo has repeatedly made statements against Iran in recent days. He claimed that there is no doubt that the recent explosions in tankers in the Gulf were carried out by Iran. The possibility of a U.S. attack came at the time of the deterioration of relations between the United States and Iran, against the backdrop of the U.S.'s withdrawal from the nuclear agreement a year ago, and the sanctions on the economy of the Islamic Republic. In recent days, Iran has announced that it intends to deviate from the nuclear agreement signed in 2015 and to enrich uranium at a higher level than the maximum it has committed to within the framework of the nuclear deal. In addition to the confrontation over Iran's nuclear program, the United States accuses Tehran of trying to extend its arm across the Middle East and destabilize the region from Yemen to Syria. Among other things, the White House blamed Iran for the attack on several oil in recent weeks in the Persian Gulf and even published a video showing Iranian fighters apparently removing a mine that did not explode from a ship that was attacked. For its part, Iran is threatening to continue countering the U.S. sanctions, as long as the other signatories to the nuclear agreement do not compensate for the economic damage caused to it, and even to withdraw from the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, which prevents countries from developing nuclear weapons.
So that video doesn't show clearly that these people are Iranian fighters. They didn't arrest anyone. So how do you know it's not Mossad or someone else dressed up as an Iranian military person or in an Iranian boat to make it look as if Iran did it? What would Iran have to gain from this war and from getting their nuclear facilities bombed, etc.? So the other part I left out in the previous broadcast. So basically my point is, if they haven't arrested anyone, they don't really know who did it, and they're just making stuff up to blame Iran. I had prepared that part of the broadcast. Apparently they've made me turn it off, but I can probably find it fast. So that's Blackstone Intelligence. Let's see if CPU is at 100%, so perhaps it's best if I black out for a while. Internet kill switch. So there may be frame drops. like this, CPU usage should become lower. But it's okay now, so let's see if I can find the broadcast. They do that with the Tesla technology, which they're abusing to accumulate wealth and power and to torture innocent people that expose their planned world war, to reduce the global population and build a third temple in Jerusalem. The Jesuits and Masons have planned this. So I think that it will happen. But it's not 100% certain, and I'm certain that they can prevent it, even if they've planned it. Everything is possible because everything is energy. So anyway, they claim that Trump did this thing they labeled, Trump labeled IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, Iran's official army, a terror group to circumvent Congress, so that they can say it's not a sovereign state, so we don't need the approval from Congress to go to war. But is that really true, or is it just some nonsense argument, and do they still need the approval of Congress? Were all these previous wars really in the benefit of the US? $4.8 trillion, 5,000 dead US soldiers, 1 million dead Iraqis, and depleted uranium kits are born continuously to create these terrorists to flood countries. Is it true that Israel only wants diversity for all countries, but Israel? In Israel we find segregation, we find the Gaza Strip, 190 dead protesters, etc. So that's proven beyond any reasonable doubt, isn't it? The video. Oh yeah, I put it in YouTube, I remember. Let's close virtual DJ and restart because it's not starting up, not responding. And like I said, they do that, so now they also closed they closed everything. As you see here, everything on the taskbar is gone. So that's just to sabotage everything I do to create a world war and annihilate 7 billion people. So the people in your skulls that send these illegal voice to skull messages, of course they're criminals, they're terrorists, and they're lying to you. Otherwise you would know their location and their name if they were doing their job. They could be held responsible for what they do. And at the moment that's simply not true. So that's how we know the terrorists are not God, they're not agents. They are plain terrorists with directed energy weapons that help tyrannize the people in submission, silence everybody, and to annihilate 7 billion people. That's why they don't dismantle their nuclear weapons, of course. There is no valid reason to keep them. Because all they can do is annihilate humanity, mutually assured destruction, MAD. They can't save lives, they can't make you eternal. They're not helping anyone. And with the scalar weapons it can be enforced, so then they can make sure there are no nuclear weapons anymore, which are obsolete anyway because of these scalar weapons. But they've saved them. They want to pretend that it was a nuclear weapon, and nuclear weapons cause the end of humanity, not some scalar weapon that can also be used to generate ionizing radiation, nuclear contamination. So it can generate several types of radiation by crossing these two scalar beams. Nikola Tesla's wireless energy. Like in the movie Ghostbusters, basically. They have to cross the streams. So they can make any type of electromagnetic field. For example, the pulsed energy projectile mode torture can be inflicted. Also active denial system mode. Any electromagnetic field you can think of, basically. So yeah, the neural network can also alter ones and zeros on your hard disk. Make the CPU usage of your computer go up, though it's not listed in Task Manager. And block virtual DJ, for example, erase memory of people. And control the human mind. That means also your emotions, not just your thoughts, are controllable. And we can always think of the opposite, or the next idea is a lie. When they control your brainwave, you cannot do that. But in theory, that's still possible until they can suppress our own ideas to a bigger extent than they are capable of doing so now. Okay. Blackstone. The directory may not be listed in the virtual DJ database yet, so a review of the Iran Gulf of Oman oil tanker attacks. About 29 minutes or so, I think I had it earlier.
You can't just do it out of the blue. You've got to have some provocation. And so they claimed falsely that the North Vietnamese had launched torpedoes at American destroyers that were out in the Gulf of Tonkin off. Well, let's jump in here.com is the phrase Gulf of Tonkin thing. Let me have that terrorist organization. That way meant that the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag attack, that it was falsely blamed on the Viet Cong.
Okay, I make a blackout for a couple of seconds so that the video catches up. It needs CPU. See if I can close any other apps.
But at least
So it's very well possible they let it hang in reality, so that's why it looks like this. And when I play the video, it's... Oh, now it jumps to this all of a sudden. Okay.
you could say at least Johnson bothered to ask Congress for a congressional declaration of war. They don't even try and do that anymore. Let me show you here. Oh, I put up the wrong doggone thing. Let me see if I can find it. Bear with me a second here. Mike Pompeo our, CIA director turned
Sex slave. No, I was reminded me that we have to check that our microphone is on, that our mic is on. Probably not sex slave, perhaps secretary something.
Secretary of State. He said he's quoted in Intercept, Congress doesn't need to approve war with Iran. He's saying that they've got sufficient justification from that 2001 authorization that George W. Bush asked Congress for to go after Osama bin Laden. That is sufficient because, the USA has already branded the Iranian military as a terrorist organization. That way, when the USA decides, hey, let's go attack Iran, it's time, they don't go to Congress and say, we need a declaration of war against another sovereign state. Why? Because they're not a sovereign state. It's a terrorist group. So let's go attack. And we don't have to go back to Congress.
So is this really true, or is Iran still a sovereign state, whether the IRGC are terrorists or not? And is there, I haven't looked into that, is there any real good reason to call them terrorists? And why are the depleted uranium dropping, spreading, US Army not designated as a terrorist group yet either then by the UN, for example? The atrocities they committed are a lot worse than whatever the Iranians supposedly have done. And they also lied that Iraq supposedly had weapons of mass destruction. So why would we believe any word they say now, Netanyahu, for example? I think it's stupid to do so, and believing is stupid, knowing is smart. And if they're capable of these atrocities, then they're capable of creating a world war and reducing the global population to 500 million. So then there's a 93% chance they want you dead as well in reality.
Crazy insanity. Now, speaking of crazy insanity, little Marco Rubio, let me see if I can find where did his tweet go? Oh, here he is. So Marco Rubio says, because, Americans are saying, we're not buying it. These tankers, oh yeah, sure, it's Iran. So Marco Rubio says, those expressing skepticism that Iran was behind the attacks should tell us who they think it was instead. Make a list of nations and groups with ability to attack large vessels out in the Gulf. It will become quickly apparent that Iran and its surrogates are the only ones that make sense. Wait a second.
So how about Mossad, CIA funded terrorists, ISIS terrorists placed a bomb? This was not a torpedo that went off above the waterline, above sea level, or was it? Was it perhaps done with a drone? Some civilian with a drone. They exist as well, of course. And we've seen the drone attack recently on stage, on some president or whatever it was. Some leader. I've covered, I can check it out, but name of drone attack stage. Explosion moment, Venezuelan President Maduro unharmed. So could it be that a civilian did this, or Rothschild, for example? But you can make your own lists, of course, there are infinite possibilities.
Marco Rubio. Let's see. Who else has a history of attacking U.S. naval vessels or other vessels. Those burn marks from the napalm all over the USS Liberty, that's not painted on, Marco
It was an accident.
Rubio. Who did that, Marco Rubio? Was it Iran that attacked the USS Liberty? Was it Venezuela? Did Hugo Chavez or Nicolas Maduro, did they get out there and attack the USS Liberty? Who did that? As far as I can tell, that was the state of Israel. So don't you tell me that there's no one else in the region who could have done this attack. But anyway, I digress. And speaking of USS Liberty survivors, let me play this real quick. Let me see if I can go straight to it without.
So I think in relation to this cancer oil tanker attack, I think this is on topic, it's relevant. So I'll permit it.
Yeah. Watch this for a second. Listen to these are some of the
shouldn't be called an ally.
Survivors.
They don't deserve it.
4 days into the 1967 Six-Day War, these men witnessed and survived one of the most deadliest attacks on an American vessel by a close U.S. ally, Israel.
The torpedo entered the ship right about here.
42 years ago, Israeli jet fighter planes and torpedo boats bombarded an American intelligence Navy ship, the USS Liberty, with a series of attacks. The assault lasted 2 hours. According to survivors, killed 34 crewmen, injured over 170 others, and nearly sunk the ship.
The whole story of it being an accident is just not true.
Although for decades the Israelis insist the incident was a case of friendly fire, the victims of the attack confirmed the Israelis were fully aware they were attacking an American ship.
Israel claims that they were not flying a flag and that was a mistaken identity, but I know for myself that we were flying a flag.
A lot of it, we believe, was covered up. That it was an intentional act by Israel to sink the ship with all hands, no survivors.
Why do you think they would have bombed the ship?
Their next plan was to attack the Golan Heights. So
this is interesting.
The troops they had on the Sinai now had to be moved to take the Golan Heights. The fact that the Israelis were massacring Egyptian troops, Egyptian prisoners of war. They had so many of them, and once again, they wanted to move all the troops they could to the Syrian border, and they couldn't handle the Egyptian prisoners of war, so they massacred them. So it's perceived that they thought that we were intercepting the fact that happened.
This is a provocative act of war. Would you not agree?
I know there was a conspiracy between our government and Israel at the time, so that's the reason why they didn't pursue it, and why the investigations and the interrogations were done and covered up because of the alliance between Israel and the United States, which I think is wrong. I don't care who they are. You just don't slap a hand for killing 34 guys and wounding over 172 people on board a ship for no apparent reason. As far as I'm concerned, it's just outright murder.
All right. There we go. There's your answer, Marco Rubio. It's a shame you couldn't figure it out yourself. Then again, I don't think that U.S. senators are at the top of the mental food chain. All right, let's go ahead and talk a little bit. I just want to take a couple minutes and show you how I am looking into this. Maybe show you a little behind the scenes of what I do when I investigate stories like this. There is he said. America says, or at least the U.S. military, or at least the talking heads that manipulate our U.S. military, Pompeo and Bolton and such, they're saying one thing, and then you've got the Iranians saying something else. So we have two oil tankers that are attacked in just past the Strait of Hormuz down in the Gulf of Oman, right? Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. I've been telling you for months now to expect an attack in the Strait of Hormuz, that would be what kicks this off, right? This is why there's value in Blackstone intelligence reports. You'll get the news of what's going to happen before it happens. So
if you want to see the rest of this broadcast, you'll have to become a member and pay $10 a month. Lol. We can watch some more. I don't know if Blackstone Intelligence Network supports a two-state solution. I've talked about a two-state solution world war. And I don't know if he's a shill or controlled opposition, so I'm not accusing him of this, but I have to investigate it, test everything you learn. And I do that with everyone, so I don't choose sides, and I'm an unbiased reporter and just a civilian that is attempting to prevent a world war, to turn my house and myself into a one-man think tank that prevents this collision. And I think one of the easiest ways could be if Rouhani prevents further enrichment until at least July 7th date is passed. Because otherwise they can say you still have that agreement with other countries, and if you pass that deadline or that limit we have set to the uranium enrichment, the uranium enrichment limit is surpassed, then they could see that as an attack reason or a reason to bomb these Iranian enrichment facilities. For the 23rd, I would take a day off, perhaps, if I'd be working in one of those facilities. But that's a total hunch, basically. Perhaps it will take much longer before the World War starts, and hopefully it never starts. Perhaps they are smart enough to prevent such a world war themselves, so that they get control of these factors that control aging instead. Defeat our real enemy, death, our common enemy, death, and not our fellow humans.
let me show you a few things. When I look at stuff, I start with, there are two main things that you use. You have open source intelligence, OSINT, OSINT. Then you have human intelligence, HUMINT. So I start my investigations with open source intelligence. Of course, you've got the regular news articles and stuff like that. And eventually the idea is they're going to come out here. But when we zoom in and I mark it at the exact time, so you remember the United States had over its neighbors. Not a big surprise here. But that is making contacts with people I'm connected to. This is where you get into human intelligence sources. These are real people who are either directly or indirectly connected to the events that can provide me with special insider information. And naturally that takes longer because there's the communication back and forth. And
so basically this is interesting. This is Yutaka Katada, owner of a fuel tanker damaged in the Gulf. He says that Secretary of State Pompeo's claim of Iranian torpedoes is wrong. Katada says that his crew claims that the ship was struck by a, quote, flying object, unquote, above the waterline, which is also clear from these images. So this hole in the ship's hull, or whatever you call it, in the tanker is above the waterline, and it ends before the waterline. So how could that be a torpedo? It must have been a bomb that was placed in their ship so that may not have been done by people in boats. So they want to pretend that those are Iranians, but how do we know it was not a drone that filmed their own Mossad placing these mines above the waterline without diving suits on like James Bond? Reminds me of Putin's unstoppable missile that supposedly got lost at sea. So who has it now?
And then I have to vet to the extent I can what I'm told. So that is that's a little bit. I don't claim to have all this figured out, but I do have some leads that I am working on, trying to find out what I can. All right, so that's just a little bit of information on it. Sorry, no great big headline, whatever. I just wanted you to see when I look at something, when I look at these stories, I don't just read what CNN says, and I don't just go to alternative media sites and read what they say, Zero Hedge or wherever. I do read all of that. I take it in, but I do my own investigative work. I use all of the available open source intelligence, and then I contact my human sources to get what I can. And from there, I take that information, I protect my sources. That's number one as a journalist, is you don't...
Jake doesn't want your yellow cake.
You don't drop names, you don't... I write out all my stuff before I talk about it so I can look at it and see what am I saying here that could indicate who I'm talking to and help the wrong people find my sources. So you have to take the time to make sure you're not giving anything away. But anyway, so that's a little bit of that. Let me switch screens here, and then what I want to do is go check and see if there were any donations and acknowledge any of you that did that. Let me refresh this. 2653, a couple more of you have subscribed to me on BitChute. Thank you for that. And if you've not done it already, go to bitchute.com/Morphonios, because that is where I've got over 300.
So Jake Morphonios might have a better idea of what's at stake, and of course you can check his channel as well. And also donate on my universalpeace.jimdo.com page. The donation button is working now. And all these years it wasn't working, so there was one at the bottom of the page that was working. Apparently nobody used it either. And they're blocking my broadcast. I had over 900 videos on my channel, and it was removed, so everything is gone. I had built up a viewer audience, I had loads of likes and subscribers, and it's all gone. But my broadcasts are better now, and slowly I'm building up again. And you all could help me to get more viewers, so I don't want your money. I'd rather have more viewers and prevent World War III and create universal peace with you all, for everybody.
Videos, and that is where I'm going to be posting a lot of my stuff going forward, at least for now, as a backup. What you're going to see is you will see me go and live stream something like this. This show, even though there's nothing wrong with anything that I'm saying, you know that this stuff is going to be branded to the text it to 228 patreon.com/ my screen here, but I agree with each other's view. Give us, they will either delete it, or what everyone's asking me is what happened to my archive. So as you know, on my drive to the Red Pill Expo,
so he's talking about that a long time, also about donations, but there is a piece of good crucial intelligence in there, because how many people know how they are circumventing Congress to make another illegal war, to steal cancer oil, and to this time create a world war? That's why they wanted these permanent bases in these countries in the Middle East. And the cost of war.com meter is still going up, 4.8 trillion. And it's just the cost in money, not in lives and suffering and the amount of created terrorists, etc. So I'm against these illegal wars, and I'm totally nude. So that's to promote nudism. Horrible. My scalar medallion looks a bit feminine. Sometimes I wear a metal necklace because I'm not a homosexual, I'm a hetero. So single ladies are welcome if they think I'm not too repulsive. I'm in Meidrecht, the Netherlands. And well, I think I'm going to spend some time in the sunshine, relaxing. So thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, get nude, and start healing. Massage each other, love each other, make love, not war. To quote John Lennon, make love, go AWOL. And that is absent without leave. So Yankee, go home, safety first. And stop killing innocent civilians. And I also think it's wrong to kill the families of terrorists. Trump made clear that he wants to kill their families. And perhaps these terrorists must not even be killed. It depends on what they have planned. If they haven't killed anybody, then you could argue they don't deserve the death penalty yet. And people can always decide not to press ahead with illegal activities and do the right thing. It's never too late to do that. So, thank you all for watching. Tune in next time on Try Something.Vegetarian and do healing stuff for universal peace.